I think having an aesthetic physique has never been more desired than it is today. Seeing so many people on social media and in film showing off their god-tier physiques has unsurprisingly made so many of us want to achieve the same thing. You probably have doubts though that it's possible for an average person to build an amazing physique. However, if you follow the steps that I'm about to show you in this video and you stay consistent, those doubts will soon disappear. Essentially, there are two goals we need to work towards and achieve to actually create an aesthetic and attractive physique. The first one is going to be to create the V shape. You guys have probably seen this on social media. Basically, you're trying to make the upper body much wider than the waist. The second goal is going to be to actually get lean enough to see the muscles that you've been developing, as well as have a visible six-pack. This usually occurs around 10 to 12% body fat for men. All right, so with those two goals in mind, let's start with talking about how we can create the V taper. So the first muscle you really want to focus on is going to be the shoulders, which we can really break down into two smaller groups. Primarily is going to be the side delt and the rear delt. With the side delt, what essentially you're doing is you're creating that width from the front. It's really responsible for giving you a much wider look. And the rear delt is essentially when you're being viewed from the side, it's creating more width as well. So the best thing I can recommend when you're training the side delt in terms of exercises is going to be the side lateral raises, and you can use those with dumbbells. Alternatively, you can use cables if you like to do that instead. If you want to make it extra challenging with the cables, then add like a slight lean into it, and that's going to add in a lot more difficulty. And you really, with these, you want to just you want to take it somewhat easy. You want to be doing a higher rep count, and you want to be using lighter weight enough to where you've got good form and you're keeping good time under tension. Now, if you find it too difficult to do either of these, or maybe the cables are too hard or the dumbbells are too hard for you, number one, trying to lower the weight so that you can actually perform it properly is going to be important. But also, if even then it's still too hard for you and you're kind of maybe like just a beginner or you haven't been working on these at all, go for a machine, go for a lateral raise machine, and that's gonna be a lot easier. So now we're moving on to the rear delts. The rear delts, really important. You can do face pulls. Face pulls are a great exercise for the rear delts. And if you're having trouble while standing and you're kind of like losing your balance or you can't get like good form, lower the weight down and or try kneeling. Sometimes if you're kneeling, that'll give you more stability so you could really feel that squeeze on the rear delts. Another great exercise for targeting your rear delts and helping you build them up is the fly machine, but essentially it's like a reverse fly where you're pulling backwards and giving a really good squeeze at the end of the motion, and then you're just slowly letting it back down, coming back out and squeezing again. That's going to destroy your delts. So the next muscle we really want to focus on is going to be chest. The chest is really important because it also helps with the width, and it really just gives your upper body a sort of full and like balanced, complete look. Another important reason not to neglect the chest is because a lot of times when you're doing pressing movements and pressing exercises is you're working that front delt, which we've kind of neglected in the other shoulder exercises. So a few different exercises I like to use to kind of work on my chest is the cable crossovers, just using cables. You can also call this like a cable fly. Essentially, these are really great because you can go kind of lighter weight and do higher rep with it and really get a good pump going. Of course, there's going to be bench press. That's like just a typical one, training that mid and lower chest, as well as the incline dumbbells are really great at targeting that upper chest. Now, a really important note here with this one is do not neglect your upper chest. I made this mistake, and it was a critical mistake I made because at the time I didn't realize the importance of it. But having a well-developed upper chest is extremely important to the balancing and the overall look of your physique being complete. If you have a strong like mid and lower chest and your upper chest is weak, it just looks off. So really make sure that you don't do that. Make sure you're getting in enough like incline exercises that are targeting the upper chest, and just don't make that mistake because we spend so much time doing bench press and like lower chest exercises that a lot of times we forget the upper chest. The next muscle we really want to put a lot of attention on is going to be the lats. Now, the lats and the shoulders are kind of the two really key muscles to kind of give you that V taper shape. And the lats maybe even more so than just, the shoulders, because it's really that muscle in your back that has that sort of V shape. And so you can see why it's really important to focus on widening this muscle so that we get a stronger V taper. So some great exercises you can use to help strengthen and widen your lats are going to be the lat pull down. Now, this one is great because, you can go pretty heavy on it and you just want to maintain your form. So, don't be like swinging the weight back and forth like crazy, but just kind of get like a nice squeeze down at the bottom and then slowly let it back up. Pull down, nice squeeze at the bottom, and then slowly let it back up. The other great one for your lats and creating huge freaking lats is going to be pull-ups. Pull-ups are freaking essential for building your lats. Now, a lot of people find these really difficult. So if you can't do these yet, then focus on doing more like a pull down machine to kind of swap it out until you get to that point where you can actually do pull-ups. But pull-ups will absolutely blow up your lats. Do not underestimate pull-ups. So having big arms is obviously going to be an important part of building an aesthetic physique. And especially for guys, it really helps us bring out that masculine look. So really you want to focus on taking the arms and breaking them down into two subgroups, which is the bicep and the tricep. So when it comes to doing biceps, I like to do things like cable curls. These are great. It gives you an insane pump. Make sure you're going high rep with these, keeping your arm, not swinging around like crazy, and you're keeping good form, good time under tension. That's what the cables help with. Another great one is to do easy bar curls. If you like to do, even just doing a straight bar is fine, but I find the easy bar is a little bit better on my wrists. It doesn't hurt so much. Just make sure whatever you're doing, whatever exercises you choose to do, you're doing it at a lighter weight so you can get in higher reps and really focus on your form. So for triceps, you can do rope extensions, you can do straight bar pull downs or push downs. There's a lot of different variations for triceps, but what I found to be really beneficial is to kind of squeeze down at the bottom and just hold for a second and then let it slowly back up on the eccentric, and really just kind of get that good squeeze down at the bottom. Make sure you're contracting the triceps down at the bottom of the movement. And I've also found that keeping these in a higher rep range, maybe 10 to 12, has really given me like decent results. So training legs is important. You may be wondering, well, what about legs? We've got the upper body covered. So training legs is essential, but it's just not as critical as the upper body if your goal is to build an aesthetic physique, especially as a male. So for example, I train legs twice a week and that's it. I don't do anything extra outside of that. And I've seen pretty decent results just by doing that. And essentially I just focus on mostly quads, but I also include doing a bit of work there on the calves and hamstrings because those are also important. You can't just target one muscle and just completely leave out the rest. So it's a quad dominant focus, but I also include calves and hamstrings in there because they're very important. So again, I want to reiterate that with all these exercises, whichever one you choose, with all these movements that we are targeting these specific muscles, it's important to stay kind of within a rep range. At least for myself, I found the best results like doing at least 10. Like if you're going all the way down to like 5 and 6, you're really more training for power than anything else. I found a lot more results when I actually keep my rep range a bit higher and just focus on getting that good time under tension, the good form, practicing a full range of motion. All those things I found way more important than, trying to lift the heaviest weight possible and letting your ego get involved because you're insecure. Okay, so now we're well on the way to completing the first goal of building an aesthetic physique, which is to achieve that V-taper shape. Now, the second most important thing and the second goal we need to actually achieve in order to really complete our look is to essentially lower our body fat percentage to the point where we can see the definition of the muscles that we've been working so hard to grow, and we can get a visible six-pack. So this process really needs like a full dedicated explanation, but right now I'm just going to give you a few examples, which are essentially, number one, you need to be in a calorie deficit so you can lose weight and lower your body fat percentage. In order to do that, you need to be burning more calories than you're consuming, meaning you need to be expending more calories than the food that you're eating. In terms of the rate that you're doing that, really like 1 pound a week is good. You really shouldn't be going for like 2-3 pounds a week, because at that point you're starting to sacrifice muscle. Whereas if you lose like around like 1 pound a week, a little bit more, maybe 1.5, then you're not actually sacrificing too much muscle while you're losing that fat. Now, the goal of this dieting is to actually get to the point where you are satisfied. Maybe you have a nice visible six-pack at this point. You can see the definition of a lot of your other muscles. For diet, I would really focus on eating whole, nutritious foods that are not like overly processed, and keeping, again, your protein pretty high so that you're maintaining as much muscle as you can while you're losing that body fat. Also, I really want to say, like, experiment with your macros. There's so many people out there who kind of like demonize carb these days and like it's all about keto and stuff. But for me, I've tried going like low carb and it just doesn't really work. I can't really push myself in the gym. I can't get a good pump. And so it's important for me to have a decent amount of carbs in my diet, which is fine. If you feel like you need to do that, don't like not do it because you're supposed to be on keto or whatever. Lastly, I do train abs. Now, some people say don't train abs, it's a waste of time. Guys, really nothing's like a waste of time. It's really just about your prioritization of where you want to spend your time. So for me, it's worth it to put a little bit of time into my abs. Number one, just to keep a strong core. Keeping a strong core is really important, especially as you're going to be doing heavier other compound lifts, squats, deadlifts, all these things. You want to keep a strong core. The second reason is just like any other muscle, the abs can be trained. And so I like to do, just some light work on them, nothing crazy, especially if you're a beginner. Just do some body weight exercises and it really does help your abs just like pop a little bit, and they do grow, not like a ton, but you definitely notice the difference. Okay, so that's all I really have to share for today. If you guys follow these steps and you stay consistent, I believe that you can absolutely build an aesthetic physique for yourself, and it's absolutely worth taking the time and investing to do this. I want to thank you all for spending some time here, and if you're interested in more self-improvement type content, be sure to subscribe. The next video to watch should appear on screen, so I'll see you there.